The capture of Atahualpa and the fall of the Inca's empire. Abigail Ayala. In 1529, a group of Spanish conquistadors navigated to unknown lands of South America. Their leader, Francisco Pizarro, had already visited before. Pizarro chose to pursue fortune and adventure in the New World, and had undertaken 2 failed expeditions to Peru. In 1529, Pizarro obtained permission from the Spanish crown to lead a campaign to conquer Peru, and went on his 3rd and successful expedition. He gathered Spanish soldiers well equipped of weapons with the promise of sharing any treasure found, so they began their trip from Panama, reaching Tumbes. The Spanish arrived to what is known as the northeast of Peru, Tumbes. One thing in mind of these conquistadors was their promise of giving a big part of what they would find to their king, Carlos V. Most of them had traveled many kilometers before, experiencing sickness and battles in the name of God. Their objective was to find El Dorado, a land so fabulous because according to the legends, it was rich in gold, giving these men abundance in richness to fulfill their dreams. But Pizarro and their soldiers ignored the empire that was here, the Inca Empire. Many Inca messengers took the news to Cusco, where it was the capital of the empire, and the settling of Atahualpa, informing of the people that had arrived to their land. The Inca culture believed that the gold was the blood of the sun god. With primary tools, they created amazing ornaments and figures, decorating the kingdom and the tombs of the nobles. And only the king was allowed to wear decorations of gold as a symbol of his divine position. For the Incas, the gold was used different than what the Europeans had in mind. As same as other cultures, the Incas believed that one day their god of creation would return, a god whose skin was white and with black beard, will come from the land where the sun rises, and it was a being so similar to Francisco Pizarro. 1532, Francisco Pizarro and his soldiers had reached the limits of the Inca Empire and were enticed to find the gold, finding themselves in what is known today as Peru. When they reached a place known as Tahuantinsuyu, they ignored the gold that literally was beneath their feet. During this time, all the conquistadors found were ruins, where they used for camp as a recovering during the night. In their search for gold, they had been traveling for months, and because of it, many began to have doubts. As Catholics, they sang and prayed to the Virgin Mary, since for this man, there was no turning back. Most of them left Spain to escape poverty, as they were ready to risk their lives in the search of the possibility the legends were. Also, during this time, they had stumbled onto certain idols of gold, giving them hope and knowing that it was only the beginning. Certain natives promised them to guide them through the Andes to the kingdom of Atahualpa in the search of more gold. Also, something to know is that Pizarro was losing patience since King Carlos V had given the authority to conquer the land, but the rivals of Pizarro in the Spanish court wanted the king to revoke that conquest, and at the first standoff failed. So Pizarro had to do something, and quickly, to have a right. The guides led the conquistadors through valleys and mountains that seemed inhabited, but there were Inca spies who followed them all the time. They sent messages through lights as the possibility that they could be the Inca god Viracocha. In November of 1532, after months, the conquistadors reached the peak point of the Andes. at 5,000 meters above sea level, therefore reaching the stronghold of the Incas from Tumbes to Cajamarca. November 16, 1532, Francisco Pizarro invites Atahualpa to a feast in Cajamarca, honoring him for becoming the Inca emperor, since Atahualpa had defeated his half-brother army, bringing an end to the Inca civil war. Unafraid of Pizarro's merely 160 Spanish soldiers, Atahualpa and 10,000 men agreed to meet the Spanish in the town center. When Fray Vicente de Valverde raises the Bible and suggests Atahualpa to convert, Atahualpa slaps the Bible to the ground. Pizarro signals his men to ambush the Incas and opens fire, slaughtering the Incas without losing a single soldier. The soldiers hold Atahualpa in representation of justice, and the soldiers continue conquering the empire. Then Atahualpa is accused of making a rebellion, therefore the Inca emperor is executed. The Inca empire was shook completely, with a strong hit from Pizarro and his soldiers. But even so, without their king's son Atahualpa, many Incas resisted the conquest in all the forms possible. The Golden Empire of the Incas was wide, with an extension of 3,200 kilometers from the actual Colombia to Chile. Its population was around 12 million people. To the historians and the chronicles, on August 10, 1536, Francisco Pizarro is in Lima, another city that was established by the Spanish conquest. While he was then, he watches in terror as the Incas still hold in resistance of the Spanish, proclaiming, "God save us from the fury of the Indians," is all that he could say. During this time, many Incas felt as they couldn't stand against the weapons of the Spanish. Either way, Pizarro takes advantage of this Inca's defeat, pushing forward into reaching Cusco, the capital of the Incas. It basically takes 4 years for the Incas to resist this battle, so forth that in 1536, the Incas' armies mobilize and throw themselves into what is known as Machu Picchu, as being their biggest resistance and wanting to continue in all they could protect of their empire. The Incas tried to hide all they could from the Spanish conquistadors, with the biggest secret in the city of Machu Picchu, a city that was hidden from the people for 400 years. So with the certainty that the Incas were hiding big treasures, the Spanish became more skeptical. Before the Atahualpa was executed, he was given the opportunity to read and write, therefore giving clues to certain treasures, helping defeat his own people and making the Spanish more ambitious, so forth that the Spanish desire more. So Pizarro and his men went around the empire looking for more gold. Reaching the big walls of resilience of the Inca's empire during an expedition. Once they reached this place, there were still Incas people who resisted the conquest. At the same time, the Spanish were shocked of the architecture found. Even until nowadays, this topic still puzzles many as to how the Incas were able to construct such a thing. Another questioning is that the fountain of water is found at 45 kilometers of distance, and many of the blocks have a height of 5 meters and weight around 150 tons, something that shocked the Spanish completely, since the blocks were positioned to fit so perfectly. Even so, the conquistadors had overcame all the obstacles to reach to this point, and wanted nothing more than the victory, attacking the stronghold and winning. As the years went by, the Spanish would have made all the Incas surrender, and therefore control the empire. Using the roads built by the Incas, the Spanish went more in depth of the Andes searching for even more gold and becoming more desperate to the point of being savages, making the torture a method so common for the cruelty of the Spanish was registered by an indigenous artist of the time, showing picture as one of the biggest evidence of the atrocities of the Spanish. The greed for gold and the desire to convert the Incas to Christianity reached a high level of torture and brutality. So forth that the King Carlos V heard about all this cruelty and decreed a stop to the brutality, but his commands were ignored in a big part, that eventually the Incas converted to Christianity and interpreted it in their own way. An Inca prince with a cross represented the combination of both cultures. Some curious facts about the conquest is that it is said that during the expedition of 1532, many soldiers of Pizarro were having doubts about their leader, since they saw that Pizarro had become very friendly with Atahualpa during the time he was captured. They began doubting because Pizarro began teaching Atahualpa to play games that would help Pizarro find answers. This is the reason why many historians say that much of the real history of this conquest was destroyed, since there were many betrayals that are still unknown. Most of this is due to the fact that the Inca Empire was governed of capitalism and control, something that many of the Incas weren't agree, since they were being tortured in different ways and now given a position of right. Therefore, it is said that many Incas did betray Atahualpa as being their leader. Also, to create a stronger link, it is said that Atahualpa offered Pizarro his sister for marriage, to which Pizarro made her get baptized and gave her the name of Inés, and basically took her as a lover, but never married her. Even though it is said that Pizarro didn't marry her in many historians, there is a painting where it is said that Pizarro did marry Atahualpa's sister, who was now Inés. Finally, it is said that Pizarro signed a note for killing Atahualpa. Some historians said that Atahualpa was killed before reaching Cusco, and others said that he was killed after a long time being captured. Some still question to why did Pizarro kill Atahualpa, since they had become close. It is possible that Pizarro was forced by his soldiers to sign this killing and kill Atahualpa. Acting in betray to Atahualpa, Pizarro signed it. During the night of Atahualpa's death on July 26, 1533, the king's son was pulled out of his prison in Cajamarca, offering him a last wish, which was being burned alive or to become a believer of Christianity and be hanged, which Atahualpa chose to be hanged. Meanwhile, the priest baptized him, giving him the name of Francisco in the Christian religion. It is said that Atahualpa, while being strangled, pleaded to Pizarro to take care of his family, meaning his wives and sons. It is said that Pizarro, with tears, said that he will do so, therefore reaching the end of the Inca Empire with Atahualpa's death. Also that night, many Incas killed themselves in honor of Atahualpa's death, with the hope of following their leader to the other side. After all this, the facts of the gold not being gold made the conquistadors go crazy and kill each other. After defeating the Incas, they began fighting because of envy and desire for more, even so that they went against their leader. Francisco Pizarro had gained many enemies in his way to glory, so forth that 12 killers attacked and killed Pizarro. He fought until the end, and his last words were, "Come on, faithful sir, a company of all my adventures. Pizarro never went back to his homeland of Spain, dying in the hands of his own people on June 26, 1541, 8 years after Atahualpa's death.